Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Blame It on Marketing podcast. The title of this episode is Make It Go Viral. And the reason we're doing this podcast is to talk about all of the kind of cliche stuff that people have always said to us when we work in marketing. And Make It Go Viral is definitely one of those things that we've all heard. And we're joined today by Will, who is going to introduce himself.
Hey guys, how you doing? My name's Will. I am the head of content at SalesFeed and co-founder of a social media community called Social.
We can talk about how we all know each other. So Will's a really great sales guy because 4 years after working with him, I still got in touch with him. So something went right there. We met because we worked in the same industry, and I was a buyer and he was a provider of a service. And I think we met up in person maybe once. Will's based in Canada. I was in London at the time, and he was just a really great guy in general. But as we were planning this episode, we were like, oh, it'd be great to get someone's opinion on, going viral in general. We're like, do we know anyone? And I was like, oh, there's this guy Will I know. Let's see if he's up for a podcast. So this is how we ended up here. And we'll talk about, I guess, your interesting split between being a head of content now, but actually your real specialty is sales, and that's kind of what brought you into the content role in the first place.
Yeah, so I mean, now I am really a marketer, but don't tell anyone because I like to give sales advice, and no one wants sales advice from marketing people most of the time, or at least they like to make fun. But I was working in sales, and I started creating content on TikTok and on LinkedIn, mostly video content. And really, I just did that as more of a hobby. So I was finding myself just, pandemic, locked away, starting in sales. And I wanted to share some of my learnings. So I was having all these mind-blowing moments while I was getting training and while I was talking to customers. And I wanted like a creative outlet to share them. So I started posting on TikTok about once a day, every day, just as a little thing. I loved the experience of filming, editing the content. And I obviously, when you start getting some nice comments and likes, that hits a little bit of a dopamine fix as well. So I started doing that every single day on TikTok, and I was cross-posting them to LinkedIn. And they were getting a lot more attention, a lot more engagement on LinkedIn than they were on TikTok, funnily enough. So I kept doing it, and I kept doing it. I made a mix of advice and humor videos. And eventually it kind of picked up, started getting a lot more followers. And then my current boss, Tyler Lasar, VP of Marketing at Vidyard, took notice and said, hey, Will, look, I'm looking to create a sales media brand. I want someone who's done the role of a salesperson and who knows how to make content. You'd be perfect for this. And then I joined the team there. And since then, it's sped up, if anything. Being able to focus 100% on content, creating a brand. The follower count has shot up. The number of videos that go viral has exploded. And yeah, so that's really where I'm at now. And then because of the fact that I've obviously found out I'm kind of good at social media, but there's also a lot of questions that come to social media. Two friends and I have recently founded a community for social media professionals so we can share our learnings, because there's so many little nuances to each platform, and algorithms are always changing, and there's all these questions that everyone has, and there's no real one source of truth for it. So we started a community just to help people do what we do.
In terms of like when you originally started, Will, so you said you were doing it kind of for a bit of fun and stuff like that. Like, I think that one of the things that goes hand in hand with that sort of like make it go viral kind of thing that people say to you, especially when they're in like senior leadership, is that a kind of a lack of understanding of the commitment that's needed to really kind of to actually do that. So I wondered if it would be worth like just chatting through your experience of sort of like when it started taking off, and then kind of what that actually meant and how that kind of started to impact you.
It's so true, because you do hear that make it go viral sometimes, or like make something viral. Honestly, if I could, every single thing I post would go viral, right? So it's not that easy, because only like 1 in 20, maybe 30 of the things I actually post go true viral. So the most important element of any of this is consistency, and that takes time to be consistent. So I think like the whole idea of make it go viral is such an oxymoron, because nothing is going to go viral the first time you do something. It's probably going to suck, in fact. And then consistency builds that muscle so you can get better, you can get more shots at bat, and then sometimes you just strike that viral goal, and that's when it goes viral. So for me, when I started creating as an individual, as a solo creator, I was posting on TikTok every single day from April of 2021 right through to July of 2021, and I had 400 TikTok followers. The average video I posted got about 500 views. It was kind of bad. I was on the verge of thinking, this is just like exhausting. And like, but the main thing was I was having fun doing it. and that was my outlet, and that was the reason I could keep going, because my goal wasn't to go viral. And then all of a sudden I posted a video about sales and how it was as a career and how lucky I'd felt to kind of get good at it and start being able to provide for my family. And it just blew up. Got 1.2 million views in a day. And I couldn't even keep up with the comments. And I got 10,000 followers overnight. And because of that, that then kind of, it didn't happen because I made one video one day. It happened because I made 90 videos over 90 days, right? So that's the whole like oxymoron of it. You're not going to go viral on the first thing you ever post online. And that's why so few people can really commit to being a creator, because it does take consistency, it does take skills, and it does take motivation to keep going sometimes, because nothing feels worse than when you put something out there that you think was amazing and it felt special and you poured all your love and heart and ideas into it, and then it flops and gets 2 likes. It's almost embarrassing to some people. Yeah, I think that was my journey. And then since then, these, probably once a month since then, I've had something blow up. So even then, it's still more consistency. 29 out of every 30 videos I post don't go viral.
Yeah. And you're still posting as yourself, as Will. You're just creating, I guess, content for your company now. If that makes sense? So it's still a human being and you're still connecting to someone in a video rather than it being, I don't know, an animation of some sort, which is, I think, where B2B goes wrong as well, because you can't connect to that. It doesn't work, right?
And in a way, that's almost like a good idea for any B2B marketers listening. It's okay to be in your videos, and like, no one wants to connect and build a relationship with a faceless logo. And you've seen throughout history, people have figured this out. That's why mascots exist. Do you want to make an emotional connection with Frosties, little flakes with sugar coated on them? Or do you want to make an emotional connection with Tony the Tiger? So that's why mascots exist, and I think that's what B2B misses out on. They like go very corporate-y with it, when it's actually okay to give your company a personality and a voice. And sometimes that's one person, sometimes it's multiple people, it's a team. But I think that's where a lot of people miss the mark.
And tell us about, you told us a little story about how you made a video with your CEO. I believe it was your old CEO, and it kind of went mental, and in the both best and worst way, but you were down, and it was a great story, basically.
I will retell that story for sure. So my most viewed video of all time is actually that one. I've gone back and checked since that last conversation. It's got 2.5 million views on TikTok, and it has, I believe, 300,000 views on LinkedIn as well. So it's a double dip. And LinkedIn, obviously, when you start talking about hundreds of thousands of views, those are much, much harder to attain on LinkedIn than TikTok. I almost don't count TikTok likes and comments as the same weight as I do LinkedIn, because it's just so much harder to get traction there, less users, and the audience is more valuable to me as well, because I can directly connect with them, whereas TikTok is a lot of like user 12893. What's that mean to me? But anyway, so yeah, I made my CEO at my last company realized and saw like I was getting a lot of traction on LinkedIn and TikTok, and he said, "Hey, Will, I'd love to be involved in some of this, bring the company into it, bring me into it a little bit more." I said, "For sure." He said, "Do you have any ideas of how I could do it?" And I was like, "Well, what's something that's kind of relatable for people?" And I was like, and the CEO. And I was like, "Oh, send me a Slack message saying that you'd like to talk to me this afternoon." So then I filmed that Slack message coming in, and then I filmed like a reaction of me, like my thought process after you get a message from your boss saying, "Let's talk." And it was like mental breakdown, call your dad, check how much funds you have in your account and figure out how long you can survive for if you lose your job today. And it just blew up. And I think it was because two things. It's one, very relatable, because a lot of people get messages from their boss saying, "Let's chat," and they often get anxious about that. But the second thing is, like, it seemed kind of real, and that almost backfired a little bit, because all these comments were like, "That's a horrible boss. Like, how dare he treat you in such a way? He should have told you the agenda for the meeting." And I was like, whoa, like this was a skit, but like, because it was slightly more believable, I think that's what helped it take off. For him, it kind of backfired, because all these people saw his name and were like, "He's a horrible manager. How dare he do that?" But I kind of let everyone know, hey, chill your beans. It's okay. But yeah, obviously a lot of people kind of just believe everything they see online. So yeah, that happened.
I mean, I love that he was up for that, and like, you guys are fine, I assume, and it wasn't like the thing that got you fired.
Oh, imagine
I
that.
know, right?
Imagine if you had to like send me a real one the next day. Like, we need to chat about that TikTok. Well, that would have been a really ironic turn of events, wouldn't it?
We spoke a little bit about, and actually, we've had this problem whilst trying to schedule podcast episodes. So we know a bunch of marketing people, and we're like, "Hey, do you want to contribute to this? It's going to be, a bit tongue in cheek, a little bit fun." And they're like, "Oh yes, amazing, I'm so up for it." And then a week later, they get back to us, and they're like, "Sorry, my company is not happy with me doing this," and that infuriates me to the most because our company does not own a marketer's voice in, especially within the marketing field. They're not even talking about what their company does. It's got nothing to do with that. But we spoke a little bit about that dichotomy and about companies being scared of giving their employees a voice, and you had some really just good advice and I guess your stance on that in general.
I think that is extremely short-sighted. Um, I think companies should be really looking to embrace it. Like we said before, people don't really connect with logos and companies as much as they do individuals. And by harnessing the brands of your employees, you can increase your reach tenfold in social, especially. You can build a personality. You can kind of, people don't really, a lot of companies have built entire brands off the back of one person. And the people aren't connecting with the brand, they're connecting with that one person, they're associating it. It's almost like the names become synonymous with one another. And I think companies are afraid because of the risk that comes from it. But ultimately, they don't really own the brand, so the person, so they shouldn't. But normally, they've got so that their content says that's represented in such a way. But the best companies I know that are really harnessing and winning, getting results from social media, have these teams of people who they've given their own voice to. And I think a lot of companies try and enable this in the wrong way. They're like, "Oh, share our stuff." When in reality, what makes these employees unique, what's going to make it resonate, is that it is their voice. So for companies who have someone who's actually keen to get out there and begin creating content, you got to get behind that. That's an opportunity. For me these days, if so, a company wanted me to come on board and start doing what I do here for what I do for Sales Feed and Vidyard, it would cost, I'm going to say exactly how much it would cost. It would cost a lot more money than if they had just enabled someone and like built them up almost like a talent academy in a way. That's a much better way to do it. So if you have someone who's keen to get on content and keen to build a personal brand, jump on that, enable them, give them a camera, give them a little bit of extra money for the extra reach they're going to be giving you. Try and figure out how you can harness that and ultimately feed it back to them. Because when I was doing this for my last company, before my CEO kind of acknowledged it, I did become a little bit resentful because I was gaining my employer I was getting a lot more traction than the company page was. I was getting a lot of inbound leads coming to me as a sales rep, which obviously feels great because I don't have to cold call. Anything to get away from the phone, right? But it also, I was like thinking, I'm giving all this free exposure to my company and no one's even said well done to me yet. You know what I mean? So it's almost better to recognize that, enable it, and then kind of use that. Because what happened was by the time I went to Vidyard and Sales Feed and got this role full time, they were like, "Why don't you just do it for us?" I'm like, "Well, if you had said this a month ago, then I would be, right?" And there's this kind of missed opportunity. So if you are a brand who's a little bit worried about what your employees are doing online, the best way to control it would be to enable it in the right ways, not put guardrails up, but instead kind of more so give them direction and help them. Because then they'll be grateful, then they'll stick around, and then they'll be really authentically tying it back to your company as well. Yeah. I can see the problem though, because some people go online and they start talking about politics and stuff like that, and race and religion and gender, and not everyone is going to be good at doing that. So I think it's really in what context. In what context is it the right person? But really, why would you not want someone to come on a marketing podcast and represent their company and get your name out there in front of more and more people? I never say no to a podcast, never. Because I just love, one, having conversations like these, but two, like it helps me meet new people. It helps more people find us. So yeah.
Yeah, it's all positive. It's all positive stuff. I mean, we were going to talk about the flip side of when going viral is like bad. And we do have an example. We'll name and shame. So for example, when Brewdog do all these kind of like public stunts, like the recent one with the Qatar World Cup, come out and said, we're an anti-sponsor. But then on the flip side of that, you know, they had employees publish an open letter about how awfully the company treat them, yet they still continue to, with their kind of like public stunts. So I guess I kind of want to talk about that for a minute, like the practice what you preach stuff, because I think, Will, what you were saying there about enabling your employees to go online and do this stuff if they're good at it and they want to do it, it's great. But then what if your company aren't quite what you say you are on the tin? Should you then stay away from it?
I mean, like, you're going to hate me with this response, but like, do a better job as a company for one. Like, stop being such a bad company. That's not your employees' fault if they're going to talk about it. It's your fault for not, like, get better. That's the first one, be good. But yeah, to your point, like, that's going to happen, I think, no matter what happens. Like, you can have all these policies and whatnot, but like, I remember, what was it, the Better.com CEO? He like laid everyone off by Zoom and someone filmed it and that went mega viral. Like, that wasn't because the person had a personal brand and been going on podcasts and stuff. It was because you were being a dog human, right? Not a nice person, doing things the wrong way. You are going to get exposed for that. And I think in 2022, everyone needs to be careful about how they conduct themselves. Remember the crying CEO on LinkedIn? What a poor decision that was.
Oh.
Although he tried to make it work for a minute.
I remember seeing the original post and I was like, I wouldn't post this on LinkedIn, but it's really not that, like, I've seen much worse shit on LinkedIn, let's be real.
Well, it didn't help that he kind of doubled down, and then he kind of like the next day he started a Patreon, so he's like obviously trying to like capitalize on it. And like, I'm certain that worked out well for him. I'm certain his company actually grew from that post in a way. So like, at the same time, I might just say, hey, no publicity is bad publicity. I know it's a horrible thing to say as a marketer, but like, I'm certain that gentleman who actually only ran a company that had like 5 or 6 employees, he let go of like 2 people, so it wasn't even that big of a deal, but it was made a big deal because what happened online. I'm certain he actually got a lot more business from that than he lost. So like, in a way, yes, but like, just do better. Avoid doing the things that are going to make you go viral for the wrong reasons. Avoid being controversial. Avoid saying horrible things. Treat your employees right. And ultimately, yeah, probably just, if someone's posting horrible things online, then that's something you need to figure out before they come online on your company. That's something that you need to figure out and weed out in the interview process if they're a culture fit, or if they're going to be saying horrible things that are going to give your company a bad image. That's a risk that everyone should be taking these days, because all it takes is someone to pick up a phone, download TikTok, and anyone could be a big creator these days. Anyone go viral in the snap of fingers.
I guess you take that risk when you hire someone, right? Like, they could go and say anything they want, even on LinkedIn, and completely, like, you know, be wild, but you'll never know until they do it. So you just got to hire people that you don't think are going to be doing that.
Yeah, they could also be big in their own right for doing something else anyway. So like, you don't know who you're hiring. Like, I mean, you do, but you don't, right? They could be big because they sell like Ruta sourdough starter online, right? You're a marketer and you sell sourdough starter, and you could be on TikTok doing that. And there's just as much risk attached to that anyway. You know, in like 2022, the whole side hustle culture is a real thing. Yeah, I mean, sorry, that was not a spicy example. But you could have
There's
you
nothing
could have
spicy
an
about that,
OnlyFans page, you know.
But yeah, I think to your point, like where we came from on this, the least of your worries is someone going on a marketing podcast. So that's frustrating to hear. If anything, every company, I think in the next few years, a lot of companies are going to adopt the same model that I'm currently in, which is companies will have a permanent position on their marketing team for an influencer. And it's a trend that I'm seeing already. They're calling it an evangelist. I hate that word because it sounds like super, like a lot of people associate the word evangelical with religion. So a lot of young people are scared off by that word. So right now I just call myself the head of content instead. But I think that a lot of companies in both B2B and even like big consumer brands are going to have influencers. We're actually kind of seeing it in a way. There's these, like I mentioned, Tony the Tiger account. He's an influencer in his own right. But then, like, you look at Nespresso, George Clooney in Nespresso. He's a face of a brand, right? And he brings an emotional connection to coffee. Let me just think of someone else. There's the Allstate guy in the trailers. Have you seen him? It's an American thing, but they have these insurance trailers for the Allstate. And there's this gentleman who appears in all of them, and he's now gone off and built his own Twitter following, but he still represents Allstate in a way. I can see this thing where like people are going to be repping brands as individuals over long periods of time rather than just individual sponsored posts. They might actually be a full-time employee, or they might just be long-term partnership. with brands.
I'm a complete Chris Walker slash Refine Labs fangirl. So Chris, if you're ever watching this, hello. Um, but if you want a good example of companies, B2B companies that are already doing this, they're a fantastic example. I probably follow almost all of their stuff, I guess, people, because they all post really great shit about marketing, and I want to read that. And I know they're all from Refine Labs, and like if I was a buyer again, and I'm not a consultant, I would be leaning to looking to them for help if I needed the help. So that's a really great brand. If you're listening to this and you kind of don't know where to start, if you want to have a look at what they're doing, they're fantastic.
Yeah. Todd there, Carl, Chris himself, yeah, they do a really good job of it. And to your point, if I was a buyer, you said it there, if I was a buyer, I'd look to them first. That's the whole advantage. So it's not even like I go viral and close a bunch of customers. It's I go viral, a bunch of people see it, 3 months later, someone starts thinking about investing in video software for their sales team. Who's top of mind? That's the circle. It's not as quick win as oh, I got 2 million views, but what does that really mean? Probably not that much. I probably got a bit more traffic, a bit more click-throughs on my profile link, got a lot more followers who are going to see my stuff in the future, but then what? So I think it's like a long game. It's mind share. It's dark social, as Chris might put it. It's being aware. It's owning community. It's getting there way before anyone else is even there. So that way, when someone goes, "Hey, do you know a company who can help us with our content strategy?" You go, "Yeah, I know. There's a company called Refine Labs. They're great."
The other thing, it's really interesting that you're talking about that, because essentially, like, so my marketing specialism, if you like, is actually customer advocacy, and all the stuff you're talking about is like customer advocacy, but like with a modern twist to it, right? Because it's the stuff that nobody's thought about before. It's always like, oh yeah, let's do some boring ass case studies and like do some stuff, but actually engaging with an influencer who's going to work with your brand, who loves your brand, because that's the other thing, right? Is that it's not just about the paycheck, it's the fact that you actually like what the company that you're, like an influencer for does, which I presume, Will, in this case you do. And that is like the ultimate form of customer advocacy. And that, as we know, Ruta and I know, because we worked somewhere where we ran a really successful customer advocacy program, that will get you people in the door quicker, and they are more likely to just buy straight out the gate because they have listened to someone where they respect their opinions, and it's a human being, human to human interaction, not just kind of like, yeah, download this ebook off our website and then you'll buy my stuff. It's just like, it just takes longer, as you said, I think, Will, but it is all about relationship building. And I guess that is a next question. Obviously, in terms of your followership, one of the big things that people always talk about with influencers is the kind of relationship that you have with your audience and how to keep that going, keep people engaged, and if it's like authentic or not. What's your take on that?
So my take on it is I'm aware of it, right? Because if I have 40,000 followers but only get 10 likes on every post, then I have not got an engaged audience. And you see this a lot, in fact. A lot of LinkedIn influencers from 2018, back in the heyday, who didn't keep up with the times, and their content is still 2018, if you know what I mean, or they didn't engage with the audience. So I feel like one of the best things you can do as a creator, if you want to keep a community growing, is respond to every single comment you get. And it's painful and it's time consuming, but that is a great way to be one-to-one with your followers and feel like they're being listened to. Respond to their comments, answer their questions directly. Feel free to reply to every message you get. I get these awesome messages and I like to screenshot them, all right? Because sometimes I'm a human too, and I sometimes feel down and I feel like an imposter. I have this big folder full of the messages of people who are like, "Will, you changed my life. I'm great at sales now." And I'm like, I go through it, I read those, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, thank you." And when someone sends me one of those, I'm going to reply to them like, "No worries. Let me know what else I can do for you." Being genuinely generous is such a key point to that. So just keep giving and giving and giving. And then sometimes you can ask for something, but make it mostly about giving people. And respond to comments. What happened last week was we launched a community, and in a way, we already had a community and didn't even know about it but we just hadn't measured it yet, right? So we launched a community about how to win on social, and immediately we were blown away by the number of people who joined it, who made posts to support it, and that was the intangible stuff. These people were already our friends and thinking about us. So yeah, building a powerful network. Get on that one-to-one level if you can. Make sure you're listening and answering questions from your audience as well. And the most important thing is to really vary up as well. Like, don't keep doing the same thing, because otherwise people will get bored of you. Like, there's only so much of, like, do you remember you probably got a few TV shows that you started watching? You thought, this was amazing. You watched the first season, second season, and then you started like, oh, the third season's out, and it's more of the same stuff, right? So like, don't be afraid to switch things up every now and again and experiment as well. And like, some people are going to be like, oh no, bring back the old stuff. But also like, that's good. It's evolving. Don't just keep doing the same thing, because people will get bored. People do get bored. It's human nature.
We will, by the way, we will link the community in the description, whatever channel you're on this. So if you're a social media manager, go join and have a great time. It's going to be very useful for you. But also, I'd love to pick up on what you said, and I think we could like go off on this one. But being generous when you're doing marketing is just the shit. Like, it's the best way to kind of put that value first approach. But I think that word is very much lacking in a lot of marketing teams, because it's not about being generous with what you give. It's about trying to pull out as much as you can from your audience. And when you do that consistently, it's really going to hurt you, and no one's going to bother with you. It's something that I've seen over and over again that really F's basically B2B businesses up, is just, putting out ads with like book a demo on LinkedIn, or every other week sending out emails saying book a demo, talk to our salespeople, can you do this for us, can you do that for us? Same with advocacy. You can't ask for too much. You have to be generous back. And if you're not doing marketing generously, you're probably going to have a very tough time with long-term audience growth and engagement and retention. So I love that. Generous marketing. We're going to make it a thing.
Human nature, when someone gives you something, you reciprocate, right? But when people ask for too much, you kind of get frustrated and you kind of roll your eyes. I'll tell you what, something happened over the weekend. Really weird, actually. Someone had been following my content for a little while. I made a post on LinkedIn about the fact that I just had a baby and I was going to be taking some time off, which I've done a horrible job of doing, by the way. On there every single freaking day. Bad Will, social media addiction is real, set boundaries. But he reached out to me and said, hey, me and my wife run a company called Beluga Baby, and he sent me a baby carrier, like a wrap. So I said, hey, like, he was like, I enjoy your content. I think it's great. Me and my wife would love to send you a carrier and a wrap. I was like, great. Would you like anything back? He said, no, nothing at all. And I was like, I can do a post. And he's like, no, don't even worry about it. He asked for nothing, even when it offered. And you know what that made me want to do?
Post.
Make him a post. I get that. I put the baby on. The product's good for one, like you said earlier. Like, I actually love the product as well. And now I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to wear this wrap. I'm going to put that logo front and center. Anytime anyone ever asks me, what wrap should I be using? I'm just having a baby. And exactly what you said, because I love the product, and he didn't send me a thing saying, hey, can you do a post for me? And in turn, I'll send you a wrap. It wasn't like a trade. It was a genuine gift. I did it. A bad example of this, a company reached out to me and said, hey, we'd like to send you a gaming chair. And I'm a gamer, all right? So, and my chair is super, listen to this thing. It's like squeaky. Every time I move in it, I hate it. It's uncomfortable. I'm a big guy. It's a small chair. I really want a new chair. And I was like, yeah, 100% you can send us a chair. I'd love to feature it in videos, and we can even maybe, do this and that. And then they said, okay, in return, what we would like is 4 videos on TikTok on this account and 4 videos on that other account. And I was like, do you know how much I charge a video? Like, if I was going to do a sponsorship, I would be charging anywhere from $500 to $1,500 a video. And you want to send me a $400 chair and get 8 posts in return? I was like, no. And now if anyone ever mentions that coming to me, I'm like, they're dirty. I hate them. No, okay, that's a bit mean. But I will never, ever, ever, ever buy from that company ever again.
Basically, if you want Will to post about your shit, just send him stuff and he'll be on top of it.
He'll do it. But I know we're not here to talk about advocacy, but that is the power of it, right? That's what you're supposed to do with customer advocacy, is you're not supposed to just ask people for stuff, especially because none of us really want to do it anyway. You're just supposed to like tap into the like good nature of human beings, and that is a very good business model. So well done to those companies that did that, because they've even got a mention on our podcast for when our podcast goes viral. They're going to sell loads more stuff.
And if you need some ideas about in how to do this in B2B businesses. So for us, right, I'm going to let you tell the story, but for us it was about making sure that our clients renew basically, and if somebody asks them about our product, that they have a good word to say. So we'd go out their way to make their experiences good, and there's some stupid shit we used to do, but they would love it. And I'll let Emma give the example. I think you're thinking of the same thing as I am.
Oh, the cactuses. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. So we had a very one of our biggest clients was a law firm, very kind of like stuffy, maybe like as in not the people that we worked with there. They were wonderful actually, but the like obviously it's a law firm. They're a bit uptight, you know how it is. But the ladies who worked there, who were our clients, so they just like loved our office. They loved coming over because it was just so much more chilled and relaxed. Anyway, so they came over and they were talking about, the vibe of the office and stuff. So when they came, we used to do this thing with employees where we used to let everyone choose a cactus that they felt represented their personality. It was quite entertaining. So we let them do the same, and we kind of gave them like these little goodie bags that were like full of cute stuff, and we let them choose a cactus. And they honestly, they left and they were like beyond happy. And then as a result, I mean, like we didn't ask them to do anything for us. After that, they just, in terms of advocacy, they could not have had more good stuff to say about us because we gave them a cactus. It's just those simple gestures that like go a long way, I think, is what we're getting at.
So should we talk about some actionable ways that I like to think about how you can increase your chances of going viral? This is the supercut. This is the cut down for TikTok. Number one, we've mentioned it already, be consistent. Every single day, make content. The more content you make, the more shots you have at bat, the more chances something that you post goes out. Number two, stop trying to go viral. I know that sucks, but like everything I posted that I thought would go viral didn't, and everything that went viral was something that I didn't think would go viral. It's often the things that I made in 15 seconds because I was like, that's a great idea, I'll make that right now, versus the videos that I spent hours slaving over. So in a way, be inspired, and when you have inspiration, act on it. Number three, consume. And I'm not saying mindlessly scroll, I mean consume with intent. So when you're scrolling on TikTok, when you're in your feed and you see a post that has thousands of likes or millions of views, be intentional about how you watch that and try and break down the different elements of what made that thing viral, what made it pop, and what can you use in your content, not copying it, but being inspired by the elements that made it up. For example, if I stop and I see a video that starts with a quick zoom, a sound effect, and someone immediately starts talking, and it's 7 seconds long, I can take each of those elements because I've consumed it with intent and think, okay, so now I know what can make up a viral post. I can now bring those into my content. I can bring them into my niche. Of course, it's still my material, but I can bring those features, those elements into my own content to add to it. So if I see a little while ago, tweet screenshots were going really big on LinkedIn, right? Like that's almost a trend that you can adopt and try and figure out what made those so attractive. And it was actually because the text was just slightly bigger than a normal LinkedIn post. So consume with intent. Be really intentional when you're consuming content to look for what you can use in your own. Oh, I'll tell you what, I'll throw an extra tip on there though, actually. Cross-platform post across everything. Like I mentioned earlier, I had that video go viral on TikTok. I put it on LinkedIn, it went viral again. Like reuse that, use the fire, but also like sometimes I post something on TikTok and it gets 100 views, and sometimes I repost it to Instagram and it gets 100,000. So like,
thank you so much for tuning in into this episode. Again, go follow Will on LinkedIn. It's Will Aitken. We will link his deeds down below, as well as his brand new social media community, who's I assume you guys are going to be speaking about all of the stuff that we spoke about in terms of content creation. So yeah, everything will be down below. And again, Will, thank you so much for coming on, and hopefully we'll get to have another episode with you.
I hope so too. Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.